On a quiet afternoon, I sat alone sipping tea with my favorite cup. It has been 8 years since my husband passed away, and I have grown accustomed to living alone. I have been living a peaceful and contented life day by day. Although my days may be a bit dull, I eagerly await the arrival of a grandchild from my daughter, whom I married 10 years ago. I spend my days looking forward to it with excitement. At that moment, a phone call rang out. "Beth, it's been a while. How have you been?" Upon receiving a sudden phone call from my only daughter, Beth, I couldn't contain my joy and eagerly picked up the phone with a loud voice. Beth, in her usual tone, shared her recent updates and then mentioned that she would visit my house soon to hang out. "I have something important to discuss, and I want to talk about it in person when we meet." With those words, Beth said, "See you later," and hung up the phone. Important matter? Could it finally be the announcement of her pregnancy? Considering that it was about time for her to have children, I couldn't help but think that way when I heard about the important matter. I reheated my lukewarm tea to calm my restless feelings and slowly brought it to my lips, savoring each sip. On the appointed day, the doorbell rang, signaling the arrival of my daughter and son-in-law. I warmly invited the two of them inside, noticing that they both had a more nervous expression than usual. "Would Ben like some coffee?" For my son-in-law, Ben, I served coffee, and for Beth, I prepared a non-caffeinated tea that I had researched and found recommended for pregnant women. I placed the beverages in front of them. Beth gazed at the tea, her expression clouding over, and spoke with a serious look in her eyes. "This may not be the conversation you were expecting, Mom." Sensing my expectations, Beth began to speak, carefully choosing her words as if finding it difficult to express herself. "The important matter is we have decided to adopt a child." The word adoption escaped from Beth's lips. I couldn't believe it all of a sudden. We struggled with infertility for a long time, unable to conceive a child. It took a toll on us emotionally and financially, and we faced numerous failed attempts. Beth murmured softly with an expression that revealed the difficulty of speaking about it. The infertility of my daughter and son-in-law came as a shock to me. These days, my friends are all having grandchildren one after another, and whenever we meet, the conversation is filled with stories about their grandchildren. Creating an atmosphere of excitement, I had been eagerly looking forward to meeting my grandchild. However, that expectation turned into disappointment and vanished like a bubble. I will never get to see a grandchild biologically related to me in my lifetime. I couldn't find the right words to comfort Beth. After much discussion with Ben, we realized we wanted to raise a child together. That's why we decided to adopt. Seeing that, Beth glanced at Ben beside her and they shared a small smile. Beth used to consult me about everything before, but she had never mentioned anything about infertility until this very day. Come to think of it, Beth must have sensed my longing and eagerness for the birth of a child. I had unknowingly placed pressure on my child and made it difficult for her to express herself. As a mother, I became overwhelmed with a sense of inadequacy. "It must have been tough for you all this time. I hope you find a wonderful child." I said those words with a gentle smile, as if acknowledging and appreciating their efforts thus far. I had longed for Beth to have a child who was biologically connected to us. However, I have no intention of criticizing the well-considered decision that my dear daughter and son-in-law have arrived at. Even as an adopted child, they will become a part of our family as Beth's child. It is undoubtedly a joyful occasion to have our family grow, and although there may be some concerns, it doesn't diminish the excitement it brings. I eagerly awaited the day when I would welcome my adopted grandchild and spent my time in anticipation. 1 year had passed, and one day, I received a message from Beth informing me that they had successfully welcomed their adopted child. They had the opportunity to adopt a baby, but felt a strong connection with a 2-year-old girl at a facility, so they decided to welcome her into their family. I used to cry over little things all the time and come home from school in tears, didn't I? Over the phone, Beth began talking about her past, saying those words to recount her own experiences. Curiously, I responded with nods and listened attentively, eager to hear more. At those times, you would gently embrace me, hold me tight, and stroke my head saying, "It's okay, it's okay." As I nostalgically recalled such moments, I silently listened to Beth's story. I finally became a mother, fulfilling my long-cherished dream. Even though Emma is not biologically related to us, she is our child, Ben's and mine. I want to raise her with gentle love and affection, as you did, Mom. If she's like me, it's more than I could have ever hoped for. In the past and the future, I wholeheartedly wish to continue treating Beth and her beloved family with love and affection. After a few months and things had settled down, my daughter and son-in-law arrived at our home, bringing their child. With my heart filled with anticipation, I opened the front door, excited for the first encounter with my grandchild. "Hello, Emma," I greeted her with a smile, carefully observing her as I met her for the first time. The face of my long-awaited grandchild, whom I was seeing for the first time, was different from what I had imagined. She didn't resemble Beth or Ben in any way, no matter where I looked. Having a child is a joyous thing for my daughter and son-in-law. However, witnessing the mismatched appearance of the parent and child, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. To conceal such thoughts, I again approached Emma and initiated a conversation. Emma seemed a bit shy and fidgety, holding Beth's hand tightly. I felt a sense of relief when I observed the bond being built between Beth and Emma. Gradually, my forced smile transformed into a natural expression as I engaged in conversation. As they were about to leave, I prepared an assortment of sweets for Emma. I crouched at eye level with her and handed her the souvenir. "Thank you, Grandma." Emma expressed her gratitude happily, waving her hand as she left with her parents. "Grandma, I had dreamed of the day when I would be called a grandma by my grandchild for a long time. When Emma called me a grandma, I couldn't help but feel that she genuinely was my grandchild. It reassured me of our connection." With a sense of melancholy, I put away the notebook and crayons that Emma had been playing with in a drawer, reflecting on the quietness that had replaced the earlier liveliness in the room. 3 years had passed since Beth and Ben welcomed Emma into their lives. Last month, I received a family photo from Beth and found myself looking at it daily. In the morning, I glanced at the clock and began preparing to go out in a hurry. I had planned a dinner gathering with 3 friends from my school days whom I hadn't seen in decades. As I entered the restaurant, I found that all my friends had already arrived, and we immediately delved into lively conversations about the past. I joined the conversation, and it felt like I had regained the feelings of my student days as I spoke eloquently and animatedly. The topics shifted, and we began discussing our children and even grandchildren. It's amazing how grandchildren can resemble their parents when they were young. They do the same things. It brings back such nostalgic memories. Yes, exactly. When they have traits that resemble me, rather than just their parents, it's so adorable. It makes me realize that our genes are truly connected. Each of my friends who had grandchildren freely shared stories and anecdotes about their grandchildren. Topics on resemblances, genetics, and stories about their biologically related grandchildren. It was something that I couldn't fully relate to or experience firsthand. As the conversation focused on grandchildren, the once talkative me seemed to fade into the background, no longer finding my voice. By the way, didn't Lily also have a grandchild? She lives far away, so I don't get to hear much about her recent updates, and it's quite lonely. The friend sitting beside me said that, directing the conversation towards me. Being the only one among the group who lived far away, I had limited opportunities to engage in conversations with them. The word unborn brought about a slight sense of unease, but I did not intend to deny it. However, I found it difficult to discuss that my grandchild was adopted openly, so I remained silent. After all, the fact that I have a grandchild remains unchanged. "Don't you have any photos? I'd love to see Lily's grandchild at least once." The friend sitting across from me eagerly said so, her eyes shining, seeking agreement from everyone in the group. While I could have said I didn't have any photos, I also wanted to share the joy of having a grandchild. With that in mind, I took out a family photo I had been carrying. Beth has grown into such a beautiful adult, and her husband looks handsome as ever. "Is this little one your grandchild?" After complimenting Beth and her husband, the friend beside me pointed at Emma and tilted her head in curiosity. The two friends sitting across from us also peered at the photo, exchanging glances as they did so. She doesn't resemble them at all, does she? Could it be that there was a mix-up at the hospital? No way. But they don't look alike at all. It's not completely impossible. The friends began jokingly, but half-seriously speculating about Beth and Emma, sharing their theories and speculations. I was taken aback, unable to believe what I was hearing. I never imagined that Emma's dissimilar appearance would lead to suspicions of a mix-up. From an outsider's perspective, such thoughts can arise. I was reminded of that fact and the implications it held. Emma is indeed the child of Beth and Ben. Unable to hide my frustration, I stated it firmly with a tense expression. Regardless of being an adopted child, it is certain that Emma is Beth and Ben's child. Seeing my reaction, my friends quickly laughed it off, assuring me it was just a joke. Even though I told them so, the words "they don't look alike at all" echoed in my mind. Perhaps I was also bothered by it, so it stayed on my mind. I felt as if the suppressed thoughts and concerns I had been trying to ignore were resurfacing and overflowing once again. I didn't remember much of the conversation during the rest of the dinner gathering. A few months later, Emma and I were having a snack together at home, just the two of us. Due to a wedding of mutual acquaintances attended by Beth and Ben being far away, I had agreed to take care of Emma for the night. "Grandma, can I have more juice?" Emma, whom I hadn't seen in a long time, said with a smile, looking up at me without any shyness. Her innocent smile still remained as unique as ever, not resembling anyone else. As I thought about that, I replied with a "sure," and poured her a third glass of orange juice. Taking care of a child after several decades was quite chaotic and challenging. When I tried to end snack time, she would cry and insist on wanting more. And when we went to the nearby park, she would end up covered in mud, running around in wild abandon. Whenever I tried to attend to other household chores and took my eyes off her for a moment, she would manage to doodle on the freshly painted walls with crayons. Was parenting always this challenging? I was covered in sweat as I muttered those words to myself. Since Beth got married, I had been looking forward to the day I would have the opportunity to care for my grandchild. However, this experience reminded me of the challenges of raising a child that I had forgotten about. While wiping off the scribbles on the wall with a towel, I heard something breaking coming from the kitchen. "Are you okay?" I hurriedly approached the kitchen, asking loudly about Emma's safety. In front of Emma, in the kitchen, shattered pieces of a cup were scattered around. I was relieved to see that Emma was unharmed. However, the shattered cup was a precious teacup that my late husband had given me as a gift. "I'm sorry. I wanted to make tea for you, Grandma." Emma looked up at me, her eyes filled with sadness as she uttered those words. Emma had tried to make tea for me. I understood that perfectly well, but with a face that resembled no one else's. "Please don't look at me like that." I was on the verge of blurting out such words. Overwhelmed by accumulated fatigue and the shock of the cherished cup being broken. Come to think of it, Beth wasn't this mischievous when she was young. Beth used to be quiet and not such a handful. Emma, from every aspect, bears no resemblance to Beth at all. As those sad emotions welled up, tears naturally streamed down my cheeks. I knew I shouldn't take it out on Emma, but the tears wouldn't stop flowing easily. Then, a small body wrapped around my head. It's okay," Emma said and gently stroked my head. I was startled. What I had done to Beth, it was precisely the same action that Emma naturally took. I'm sure that when Emma cried, that's how Beth comforted her, by hugging her tightly. Yes, Emma is truly Beth's child. Since realizing that, a different kind of tears overflowed and couldn't be stopped. After the sun set, we ate the dinner we had prepared together, sitting across from each other and laughing. Upon closer observation, I noticed that small expressions, actions, and gestures closely resembled Beth's. Since I started thinking that she resembled Beth, I couldn't help but find Emma incredibly endearing. Even without a blood relation, spending time together can create a bond like that of a parent and child. It was a precious day where I could truly feel that. The next day, Beth and Ben came to pick up Emma. "I don't want to go back. I want to stay with Grandma and be together longer," Emma said, clinging to my legs while crying. Emma, who says such things, is irresistibly cute. I crouched down and gently embraced Emma while murmuring to her, "It's okay. It's okay. Come and play with me again, anytime." Nodding, Emma ran towards Beth with a bright smile. From then on, whenever I met my daughter's family, I could feel the connection between Emma and us. Today, my daughter and her husband will visit my house again. Emma eats similarly to Beth, doesn't she? I said, alternating my gaze between Beth, who was chewing on her pasta, and Emma. Is that so? But more importantly, her way of laughing is starting to resemble Ben, Beth said with a joyful expression as she gazed at Emma and Ben. We can joyfully discuss heartwarming stories as a family, sharing laughter and harmony. Grandma, my precious and only grandchild, Emma calls out to me. With such happiness, I responded with a beaming smile.